You shouldn't get so much offensive power from Zhonya's. Possibly. The question is what trade-off do you want mages to make Zhonya's? So what I mean by that is, I'll give an example of this. If we make a defensive item for AD carries, one of the things we could say that seems intuitive but probably wouldn't work is, oh, it's a defensive item, so they should like just lose all their damage if they buy this. And that's the cost. You don't get any damage, and therefore you can buy this defensive item. What would that end up doing in regards to AD carries? Right, like, would that item be purchased? Would they buy it? Like, would they ever pick up an item that said you don't do any damage, but hey, at least you live longer? Right? It's kind of a thing where Zhonya's needs to be, in some aspects, a good mage item for mages who actually like want to function as a mage, because if picking up the defensive item guts your ability to deal damage and guts your ability to function as who you are, then that item stops working on damage classes, which could be fine. Like, it depends on what you want Zhonya's to be, right? If you're like, if that mage is building a bunch of damage, you shouldn't build a Zhonya's. Like, if that's what you want the game to be, that's fine. But basically, it's like defensive items like Zhonya's, if they're scoped overwhelmingly towards defense, ironically, I don't know if that's the right word, strangely, become snowball items. They become like Magi's Soul Stealer. And let's break that down, okay? So, imagine the best way to do this actually is like talking about AD carries and the item Guardian Angel, okay? So, Guardian Angel is an item that resurrects you, but it's not very good for damage. A lot of AD carries will buy this like later in the game, right? Guardian Angel is a snowball item. And the reason for that, and you might be like, well, that doesn't make sense. It's a defensive item. I buy it to stop Zed from killing me. And it's like, no, you buy it when you're winning so you can't fail. And let's talk about how it works. So, and you have to talk about it in terms of damage. So assume that you have to have enough damage to kill someone. So assume, for starters, that you are in a situation where you're dying constantly to, say, Zed, and you don't have any money. You have two options. You can buy damage or defense. Here's the problem with buying defense in that situation. If you buy defense, by the way, you're probably still going to die to Zed. And if you don't die to Zed, you're useless because you don't do damage. And so in a situation where you're behind and you don't do damage and you choose to buy defense, you are putting yourself further behind because living doesn't matter, because you don't do damage. And so you can only start buying defense once you do enough damage where you don't need it anymore. So, and that's why Guardian Angel is a snowball item, is you need your damage online first. You need to get to a point where you say, okay, I have enough damage that even if I give up damage in my next purchase, I can still kill people. I can still be a threat. Me living still matters. And then you buy Guardian Angel, which makes it really hard to shut you down. And that's a really powerful output, because now you're giving an extra life to the guy who is dangerous. You're giving an extra life to the person who, if they stay alive, kills you all. Whereas it's way, way less valuable to give an extra life to the person who dies. Who can't kill you if they're alive. This was a very counterintuitive result of Crown. I think it was Crown of the Shattered Queen or something. The crown item we had, the mythic item that like gave you like a damage shield. A lot of players bought that item assuming that it was a defensive item. They were like, oh, Zed's killing me. I should buy Crown of the Shattered Queen so that I don't die to Zed. Big mistake. You shouldn't buy Crown of the Shattered Queen to not die to Zed, because then you survive and can't kill him. And so Crown, again, was a snowball item, or an item for characters who already had enough damage to kill you without Crown. This is why Crown was like a good item on like characters like Aurelian Soul, because he was like, well, actually, I just infinite scale, and so even if I have this health item, I'm still fine. And so that's the thing that's difficult with things like Zhonya's Hourglass and defensive item for AD carries, is that if you're making defensive items for offensive classes, they either have to buy them after their offense is online or give less trade-offs to buy them if you want them to buy them earlier in the game. Thoughts on Master Plus being able to stack more than 14 days of Decay, because it's hard for me as a casual when I go offshore for work and come back and lose a lot of progression. Big Wario TV, I get what you're asking. So Big Wario TV is asking like, hey, I'm a casual player and I can't stay in Master Plus because it keeps decaying me. What's up with that? I think that's a totally reasonable request, and like I understand your pain there. We generally expect that the apex tiers of the game aren't casual. The idea there kind of is like, if you are an apex tier player, we expect you to prove it. We don't want, say, high master and challenger players just sitting on their ranks. We don't want a situation where it's like, oh, you're challenger and you got it at the start of the season, then you never played another game. If you're challenger, that's something we expect you to maintain. And so the reason we have decay in master and challenger and don't necessarily have it in other places is in lower elos, we're more fine with just like, it's more of achievement, right? It's like, okay, you played a lot of games, you're clearly this good, nice job, you've done it. Whereas the higher MMRs are the apex tier of the game, are a lot more about continuous achievement, a lot more about like, if you are master tier, it means you are master tier right now, which is why it still tends to have decay and things like that. That does mean it can be more rough to keep it up. Like, I don't know if I'd be able to or want to keep master going in a lot of seasons, just because it is a lot. But that's kind of why we have it. It's like kind of an expectation of the highest ranks, the apex ranks in the game should not be necessarily about I got there and chilled. It should be about continuous achievement, continuously showing that yes, you are a master level, a challenger level player. Although I will say, one thing I've always really loved about Valorant's ranked system is the top rank for the season thing they have. So for those of you who don't know how Valorant works, Valorant, what they do is they have this Dorito, and every win you get fills out a win on the Dorito, and there's 30 sections of the Dorito. And so if you want a full Challenger Dorito, you win 30 games in Challenger. But then the important part is, once you've done that, you don't have to stay Challenger. You can just have that achievement. You can be like, I was Challenger during this period of time. Here's my Dorito. And then each season they also they track your highest rank. And so basically what you're encouraged to do in Valorant, which I think is really cool, is you're encouraged to push until you get as far as you can, but then you're not necessarily punished for playing games after your peak. Whereas in League, if I'm Diamond 1 and it's the end of the season's coming up, I shouldn't play games necessarily. Because if I go to Diamond 2, that's what I end with. Where in Valorant, it's more about just constantly try to get higher. And then however high you got, that's what you can look back on and be like, that's what I got to for that season. So I've generally been a fan about the highest rank, because I think it encourages I think it encourages more incentives around continuing to play the game than saying sitting on your rank.